Hello, this is Nick995. For this video, I'm going to be talking about story-oriented games versus gameplay-heavy games. So, I want to define it. So, gameplay-heavy games are games where you're playing the game for the most part. Most of the time you're going to be playing through the level design or platforming section or puzzle solving, But there's not as much emphasis like on story and cutscenes, and there's very little cutscenes. With story oriented games now, the gameplay kind of slows down to show like a cutscene, to have dialogue and all that, and it's very cutscene heavy, cutscene heavy. There's lots of um, and again there can be dialogue options and all that. So if you're watching this, please like, subscribe, or share the video. Please share the video all over to their Instagram, and please press on the subscribe button down there. There's a subscribe button like on the bottom right. So if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Please. And go back and check out some of my older videos too, please. So yeah, over time, like we really, like as time goes on, you see that story-oriented games are becoming more common. Like over here, Red Dead, Last of Us, Uncharted, God of War, Witcher 3, GTA. You have other franchises like Horizon Zero Dawn, again, very story oriented. Metal Gear Solid 5, story oriented. So yeah, there's as time goes on, you realize that there's more story oriented games, and then back in like PlayStation 2 days and early PS3 days, there's a lot more. Well, there still is, but most of the games were gameplay oriented, like very like gameplay heavy. Is that one? Like very gameplay heavy. Where the vast majority, like the game you're gonna be playing. So yeah, Ratchet and Clank now. Ratchet and Clank again, a gameplay heavy game. It's very centered around gameplay. So very little cutscenes. However, this one they kind of added in like a movie into it. So this one had more cutscenes relative to other Ratchet and Clank games. But for the most part, you're gonna be walking. Like you're gonna be walking. You're gonna be traveling like from different planets. There's 10 different planets. You're gonna be shooting enemies. The majority, like the gameplay is that shooting enemies, fighting your way through areas. To unlock the next planet or find out like the next area. Crash Bandicoot here, extremely gameplay oriented. You're gonna be platforming, so you're platforming. There's gonna be like different puzzles that you have to go through and obstacles and enemies. And this is the remake. Again, this is the remake of the original Crash game. So the first 3 Crash games, I believe they were the first 3. So going back to 1997, they were the remake. So this one came on 2017. But yeah, you're platforming, running. There are so many different areas and level designs that you go to, and it's a very hard game. X-Men Wolverine Origins, most of the game you're gonna be fighting. The vast majority of the game. It's very similar to the old God of War games where it's hack and slash, very hack and slash heavy. There's countless amount of there's countless waves of enemies coming at you, and so yeah, so you're gonna be fighting enemies. Cutscenes, it has cutscenes, but not as much as story-oriented games. So story-oriented games now you have games like Last of Us and Red Dead 2. With story-oriented games, you see the gameplay, like relative to how much you play the game, the gameplay slows down for the story to be told. What's a good example? Like God of War, for example. Like I talk a lot about God of War. One of my favorite games ever. God of War 2018. Now you'll be see, like you play as Kratos. So Kratos, you're going right. The gameplay slows down to highlight like a certain area, like in the map. Like or where you need to go to, like a certain area, like in the map or whatever, or like in the world. So you're going, And then like all of a sudden Kratos starts walking, and then it's like, why can't I run? Why can't I run? So the run during that time is like it's like a sub level cutscene. So you can't run, but the gameplay will slow down for so you can hear dialogue between them. And there's lots of dialogue between them, lots of lore to talk about the lore behind, and that's LORE, not Lord, but the lore about the world and Midgard and the civilization and the Norse gods and everything. So it's very dialogue heavy. Red Dead Redemption 2, very dialogue heavy for the most part. Again, there's gonna be, you're following people, so like you're on a mission, like you'll be following somebody to a certain location, and then sometimes the dialogue, like you hear dialogue, and then like you're on your horse, and all of a sudden like you slow down to hear that dialogue, or like you might see something on like in the map, the game slows down to highlight that thing like on the map. But this one is very there's a lot of following people from point A to point B, or like running errands. So yeah, again, with story-oriented games, they're usually more. This is subjective to me. They're more immersive, because again, the story, especially like if the story is good, the story adds that immersion to the game. So like it kind of adds purpose to the main character, because like a Red Dead Redemption 2, you're a gang of outlaws are running away like from the from the government, bounty hunters, and other gang members. So you really feel that sense of, like really captures that sense of survival. And, around this time, the the age of cowboys, they're kind of are running out, and there's really much time, and you have to be so careful. So it's very immersive. It really gives you that immersion for what it would be like to be a cowboy. It really captures that. But really, the story like adds so much more to Arthur. Like Arthur has like many layers to it, and like every cutscene is like watching like an episode. It's like watching like a great episode like of a TV show. The dialogue between the characters is so good. It's so good, like it's so great. And then Last of Us 2 as well. You really feel the chemistry between Ellie and Joel. It's very dialogue heavy, talking about how they're gonna survive through this area, through the zombie apocalypse and all that. And you have to get spoilers, but you have to get Ellie to this research facility, because Ellie is the last one. She's the only one immune to this virus, so they want to replicate her blood and all that. So yeah, like lots of dialogue and character struggle. Like, you really get the sense of character struggle. You really get that character struggle. But over here, there's gonna be less, so there's less story. So the character you play as gonna be less, a relatively less. I don't know how you would word it, like less immersive compared to a story-oriented game, which would add more immersion to the character. So there's less purpose to the character, but at the same time, it's more of a traditional game format. So less cutscenes and more gameplay. So you're not gonna get as much, about like a certain character's origin and all that. Like unless you play more games outside of, like like a prequel or like a sequel. A lot of the franchises, they'll have like multiple games in them, like many. Also, too, with story-oriented games, I feel, again, there's little pauses in between like gameplay moments. Like with a Jack and Dexter, there's like almost no. I don't know if this is Jack and Dexter 1. Please let me know. It's called the Precursor Legacy. But there isn't as much stops or pauses between gameplay, in between like you playing the game. The game doesn't slow down to show you like a certain point in the map. But you'll have cutscenes here and there. Like you'll have cutscenes, but they're few and far, and in between. Usually with gameplay oriented games, you'll have more enemy variety, I feel. But with how now games are coming in so advanced now, story oriented games can have just as much enemy variety, like God of War and Witcher 3. And with Red Dead 2, there's so many animals that you can hunt, but with gameplay heavy games now, you have like a near automata. You're fighting like these robots and whatever, like robots, androids, or whatever. And there's so many different types of robots. Like the guy who made this game, the Japanese, it's a Japanese anime based game. There's so many variety of robots. There's so many variety like of that one robot, and the enemy acts, they act very differently, and they have different weaknesses, and like you have to know how to dodge and parry. And really, I should have put Devil May Cry 5 in here. That would be a great example. But in Devil May Cry 5, it's very much like there's lots of enemy variety, and you gotta. It's about strategy. So like gameplay heavy game forces you to use like more strategy relative to your time playing the game. So dodging and parrying attacks and blocking attacks and knowing how like a certain enemy reacts to this and that. Again, Halo 4, lots of enemy variety. You know, Just Cause 2, not as much, but X-Men Wolverine a lot, because you're going between flashbacks and back and forth. Between Africa, the research facility. You go to the casino, Strikers Island, like all different places. Let's talk about with dialogue now. Like I'm going back to dialogue. Witcher 3 here is a good example. No, Witcher 3 you have the dialogue now. When you talk to a character, it's RPG, so the dialogue it's gonna be very dialogue heavy. But you can choose your dialogue. You can choose the different options of dialogue. So sometimes it can give you that. Sometimes you'll get that in story-oriented games too. No, in gameplay heavy games. My bad, my bad. But yeah, Witcher 3 now, dialogue heavy. You choose a different dialogue, and sometimes you can appear as hostile. You can choose to appear as hostile, forgiving, understanding, or like you might act like I don't know what this character is talking about or whatever, or act like you don't know. And entering, you can choose like entering, a conversation. And then the NPCs react to you in such a way, it's so advanced, like it actually feels like watching like a TV show, or you're talking to somebody like in real life. It's so real. It really gives you that sense of immersion. So the dialogue options too, it gives you that sense of immersion. And with dialogue too, with this is unique because certain parts in the game, the dialogue, certain dialogue pieces will dictate how a certain decision, or how the game will no, like how the rest, like no how the rest of the story will go for after that a choice is made. So like you might make a certain choice, it's good or bad or whatever, and then that will kind of dictate the outcome like of the story, or for that quest. So with story oriented games, so I find sometimes, like few times, I can get annoying because you're playing, and like you might be stuck like in a certain cutscene or whatever, or like you might, like with God of War or Last of Us, where like you'll be like in those pause, like those semi cutscene areas where you're walking slow to see a certain part of the map. But sometimes like you wanna get back to gameplay. Sometimes you wanna I get back to playing the game and all that. But it's kind of the magic of it. Sometimes the story can be so good that, oh my god, like this is I don't want this cutscene to end, or this semi cutscene moment to end. So you're so immersed into it. So that's the magic of the good story oriented games, or even a Grand Theft Auto 5. Well, for the most part, you can skip cutscenes. All you gotta do is just press X. But with GTA 5 now, the story, I played GTA 5 like 5 times, but the story is so, you know, like it's a very nice story. Like it's a very well done story about heist, the robbery, and all, and government conspiracy and all. There's so many different things in it. But yeah, this massive world, and Now, the story. You don't want to cut. You don't want to skip the cutscenes because like you'll miss like a very important part of that of the story, or why this character is doing what. So like you'll be looking back and saying, why they gonna do this again? Why am I doing this? So again, like adds that extra layer of purpose. Usually with gameplay oriented games, you have more gameplay heavy games. You have more collectibles and customizations. You can have just as much in these, but usually here you will have more. Again, this is just like a small. Again, you guys see my game collection. It's a small fraction of what of each category, but I just want to show you the basically the best examples. So more collectibles, and both can be both like I don't know what do you call them, like sub genres or whatever. But both can be just as replayable and addicting. Like you can't wait to play more of the game or see more of the story, see how the gameplay affects the story, or vice versa. Progression, no progression. Looking at progression, usually progression here and upgrades and all that. It's more, yeah. No, it has a bigger impact like in the game. Compared to here. Aside from Witcher 3 and God of War, the really progression has kind of linked to the gameplay, like in story oriented games. No. Progression like it's kind of linked to how far you are like in the story. Correction, yeah. So it's linked to usually it's linked to how many guns you can get like in the moment. So the farther like you get like in the story, the more it'll like you'll have more access to more weaponry and more advanced weaponry and like a machine gun or like a more semi-automatic rifle or a fully automatic rifle or a grenade launcher or so. Usually here there's like the upgrade system has a big impact like in the gameplay. Like a Ratchet and Clank has a unique thing where the more you use a weapon, the more that weapon gets upgraded. But you gotta use the weapon, so like if you don't use it, you can't really upgrade it. And then there's another whole entire upgrade system to it where there's nodes where you gotta use these crystals to upgrade like a certain like how much ammo you can hold for this weapon and how much like the weapon damage and a rate of fire and all that. Halo 4 as well, X-Men Wolverine Origins has a big upgrade system. I should have put Prototype 1 here too. Prototype is kind of in between these two subgenres. SpongeBob SquarePants, lots of upgrades. Near Automata, countless amount of upgrades and perks. Again, perks, stats, buffs, all that. So yeah, and then again, so upgrades is mostly linked to how far you are like in the story or a progression. And another point, what I realized, story oriented games now they're more common. As I said this before, but yeah, so story oriented, nowadays they're more common. They're, like I love, so single player games, like single player heavy games. Cause I don't play a lot of multiplayer. I don't have PlayStation Plus, so my multiplayer is gonna be limited. And unless I play like on the PS3 or 360. But yeah, they're and you see now, like whenever PlayStation exclusives come out, like the next year or so, hopefully you get Horizon Forbidden West, God of War 5. We get Spider-Man. Spider-Man is kind of in between, Uncharted. Hopefully they make Uncharted 5, but I don't know. You see Last of Us Part 2 and all that. So yeah, story oriented, action adventure. What do you want? Open world games. They're really getting very. They're more common now compared to what they were years ago. Again, with this gameplay heavy games, you'll have more fast travel. With this, fast travel is mostly linked to the action or the adventure or like a certain area like in the map. So actually, so here it'll be more limited, but here it'll be more accessible. Then with Crash Bandicoot, it's weird because you can quit and go replay levels anytime. You can replay missions anytime. For the most part. With some of these, few of these, you can't do it as easily unless you make a separate profile and then you load back to that profile with that save point. Last of Us here, or Uncharted 3. But yeah. Well, anyways, that's it for this video here now. I'm trying to think of other game-oriented, or a video game-based videos I can make. You guys can leave some suggestions down below. Please comment, guys. Please comment. I want to get the feedback too. But thank you guys for watching.